Here's what really happened to Lee Van Cleef, the baddest of the bad. F. Scott Fitzgerald was a genius at being wrong at times, and no more so than when he wrote that there were no second acts in American lives. Leroy Van Cleef Jr., better known to the world as Lee Van Cleef, had at least 3 acts to his life and career. A distinctive presence with a piercing stare and distinctive vulpine features, he stalked the screens for almost 40 years, immediately recognizable, and in his 90 film credits he displayed a surprisingly broad range from sci-fi and film noir to classic and spaghetti westerns. Born in New Jersey, Lee went from school straight into the Navy, where he served on a minesweeper from 1942 for the duration of the war. With that little affair wrapped up, the young man entered films after a brief and unspectacular stage career. For a while he was a member of a small amateur dramatics group, after which he appeared in Joshua Logan's stage production of Mr. Roberts. He was then spotted by Stanley Kramer in his starring role in Heaven Can Wait. Eventually, he won the part of one of the desperados stalking Gary Cooper in High Noon, in which Van Cleef was first typecast as a baddie. Although the danger of typecasting was ever present, Lee tried to appear in a variety of material. He has a standout role as a military sniper in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, 1953, one of the best early monster movies. As well as westerns both on TV and the big screen, Lee played significant roles in some of the finest film noirs being made in the period. Kansas City Confidential, 1952, Vice Squad, 1953, and The Big Combo, 1953, are all classics of the genre, and Lee's contribution is often the conveyance of imaginative, almost joyful malice. The sniggering henchman can also be seen in such classic westerns as Gunfight at the OK Corral, 1957, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962. In 1958, Lee had almost been killed in a car crash, and the resulting knee injury would cause him much pain. There were rumors of alcoholism as well. Despairing of ever making it further than third villain from the right, he began to paint, set up an interior decorating business, and when some guy with a goofy name asked him to meet him in a hotel, he turned up expecting to submit an estimate for a paint job. Instead, Sergio Leone had spotted Lee from TV shows in Italy, and he wanted his stare. He wanted his look, and significantly he didn't want him to play the villain, at least at first. Van Cleef's flagging film career suddenly picked up in the mid-1960s when he appeared opposite Clint Eastwood in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns Per Qualche Dollaro in Pie and Il Buono, Il Bruto, Il Cattivo. Unlike Eastwood, who returned to Hollywood to further his career, Van Cleef stayed in Europe, where he successfully rode the spaghetti and paella trail, playing his invincible gunfighter in a succession of European-made westerns. In For a Few Dollars More, 1965, Lee plays Colonel Mortimer, a decent man hell-bent on revenge who pals up with Clint Eastwood's man with no name to take on Jean-Marie Volante's gang. It was a superb and, at last, substantial performance. And in The Good, The Bad and the Ugly, 1966, Lee would be taking joint top billing alongside Eastwood and Eli Wallach in the apex of the genre. His Angel Eyes was a villainous turn, but it was a character with depth, wit and sadism. From then on, Lee cashed in on his newfound visibility and star power with a series of spaghetti westerns in which he was given star billing and man-in-black hero roles, in films like The Big Gundown, 1966, Death Rides a Horse, 1967, Take a Hard Ride, 1975, and the Sabata comedies. By the early 1970s, he was one of the 10 most popular box office stars on the continent, and had established himself as a cult figure. With well over 800 television and film appearances to his credit, Van Cleef endeared himself to cinema-goers as a man they love to hate. Although typecast from the outset of his Hollywood career, unlike many other actors in his position, he used this obstacle to his advantage by creating a memorable and immensely popular cinema character. Back in the U.S., he took over the lead of the Magnificent Seven ride. 1972. But it was in Europe that he continued to find the work and recognition he so long waited for. Over the years, Van Cleef perfected his screen persona as a ruthless villain. His athletic frame, steely-eyed stare, hooked nose, demonic smile, and imposing presence all contributed to his success as an anti-hero. Inevitably portraying a lone, proficient killer, Van Cleef concealed a gentility beneath his tough exterior that gained the sympathy of the audience. Although brutal, his actions could usually be traced to a justifiable grievance. A scene-stealing performance in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, 1981, was a late highlight in his career, but he continued to work right up until his death in 1989, starring in a TV series called The Master. When he died, surprisingly he was only 64 years. He always seemed older, even when he was young. Being born with a pair of beady eyes was the best thing that ever happened to me, Lee said. Perhaps, he'd come to terms with the villainous quality, especially once it was more of a choice than a case of typecasting. When he died, his tombstone read "Best of the Bad," and that indeed he was. Rest in peace, Lee Van Cleef. Goodbye, legend.